Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Elsa. This is Thrive with Elsa. I think I'm getting worse at these intros. I need to find a way where I don't have to do these intros because I just turn into some absolute freak. So today I'm going to be speaking about something that I've spoken about this before, but the last time I spoke about this was when it was kind of in the works. And now it's a thing, and it's something that I want to share with you that I think needs to get spoken about a lot more. Announcement in 3, 2, 1. I got my period back. If you have watched my videos from ages ago, then you know that I did lose my period, and it's been a hell of a journey trying to get it back. A lot of stress and worry, and then not even thinking about it, and doctor's appointments and money, and a lot of things that have gone into the process of getting it back. And it kind of came back very surprisingly, and I'm just quite happy about it. I'm really pleased that it's something that I've been working on for ages. And I never thought it was going to come, and some doctor's appointments left me feeling very disheartened, but I'm going to go through all of that from start to finish, everything that I did. And I wanted to have this conversation because I think firstly, periods just need to get spoken about anyway. The fact that you don't have a period. In my case, I had hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is when you had your periods but then they stopped. That's hypothalamic amenorrhea, and in my case it's because of over-exercising or under-eating chronically, and it can be different for everyone. So obviously if your periods have stopped, take that as a red flag, take that as a warning sign that something is wrong, and go to the go to the doctors, go to your GP, do some research, and really find out what it is. Because although when I was younger and I thought, oh, my period stopped, like I didn't think anything of it, and I didn't really care, and if anything it was actually quite a positive thing. I was like, well, I don't need to deal with that anymore. But deep down I knew that something was wrong and that it needed to be sorted out and looked at. But as I said, I'll go into that. But the main part of that was that if your periods are missing, you had a period and they've stopped, then please go somewhere, seek some advice, seek some help, because it is a red flag. You should have your periods. Having a period is a sign that things are going well and that generally speaking you're healthy. But obviously just because you have a period but other things are going on, it's not the only telltale sign that you're healthy though. Like, bear that in mind before you start thinking, oh well, I have a period so I'm healthy. That's not what I'm trying to say either. It's very individual. Okay, so I lost my period in 2017. I think it was April 2017, because I remember it was my birthday, and the week after, like a while after my birthday. I just don't think I ever got it. So it was either March or April 2017. It is now 2022. So yeah, I lost it 5 years ago. And now the first thing I did that everyone needs to do is go to your GP. As I said, very important. Go to your GP, and what they did is the GP referred me to get some bloods done, but no one looked at my hormones yet. So it took at least a year and a half or 2 years for my hormones to be checked, which is quite annoying. And the way that it even got to be, my hormones were even checked, is because I asked. They weren't actually going to do it. My experience with the doctors when my periods are missing has also just been a bit of a ride, because every doctor says something different. And as an example, I had a male doctor once, and I went in and I said, because I did a bit of research, so after you go to the GP, I think it's also your responsibility to also look at the situation yourself and do some research, because I kind of knew why my periods were missing. I knew that I had an eating disorder and problems with eating, and that I was exercising quite a lot and not eating as I should be. I knew I had a problem with food and my eating and my weight, so that was already very apparent to me. and I could start doing the research. And because I knew I had a regular period beforehand and everything else seemed fine and healthy. So yeah, I had something to go off of where I could then research, and luckily for me, I did find things like hypothalamic amenorrhea. I read books such as, I didn't finish this, but this is No Period Now What? And I'm not going to say, this isn't like the Bible of missing periods, but there's definitely some truth to it and some evidence to it. It is a bit persuasive. Like, I don't know how much I actually like this book, but in terms of it being kind of what I needed to hear and to build my confidence that this is probably what it is hypothalamic amenorrhea, and there's a set of steps that I need to go through to regain my period, this is probably a good place to start. After seeing the doctors and not really much happening and doing some bloods and everything coming back fine, because I used to be anemic, so there's like, oh, maybe something to do with that. I don't think it was. I think my iron levels were still quite low, but anyway, I pushed to get my hormones tested to see where my levels are at, and I specifically remember this doctor's appointment. It was like, can I please have my hormones done? I think this is what I have. And then he looked at me and was like, you look healthy. And it's just annoying because I'm telling you there's a problem. I'm telling you I don't have my periods. I've told you about my past, which was an eating disorder. And at this point, I was still underweight, and I had gained some weight from when I'd lost a lot of weight from my eating disorder. So I'd come up a little bit. So already it was a bit triggering to hear, and I'm not saying that's a him problem, that's probably still a me problem, because I was the one that's triggered, and I do believe that if something is triggering you, it means there's work that you need to do to solve why it's triggering you. So I completely understand that the whole triggered thing is probably a me thing, me still being stuck in my eating disorder a little bit and not really enjoying the fact that he's saying you look healthy, which in my eyes is, okay, you've gained weight and that's a bad thing. I know that's all internal work, but if I'm saying that I don't have my periods and you're looking at me and saying you look healthy, I just don't really see what he was trying to do with that, where he was trying to get at, because I've literally told you that there's a problem, so don't start judging me by what I look like and your opinion of what health looks like, and oh, I should be fine then. Oh no, I've just told you I'm not fine and that something needs to be done. And he referred me to the gynecologist, but I still push. I was like, I would still like to get my hormones tested. And he was like, okay, but like, I don't think, whatever. He just basically made it difficult, and it made me seem like I was stupid, even though I was probably knowing what my body was going through more than anyone, and he just wasn't really listening to me, which is a bit annoying, and like, wasn't taking me seriously. And taking me for what I looked like, which in his eyes was healthy. So a bit disheartening. I came away from that feeling quite upset. Anyway, that's something why I also wanted to talk about this whole process with you guys, because it's going to be a difficult process, and if doctors are saying different things and maybe making you feel disheartened, you still need to push through and work for it, because it's so important for your health and for your future and your long-term health, because a missing period affects us in ways that we wouldn't even realise, to our bones, to our cognitive functioning, to our mood, to obviously if you want to get pregnant in the future, which I know isn't probably something you're thinking about right now, but it could be something that you want to do in the future. So yeah, there's just so many things that our periods affect, and because it is such a challenging process to get your periods back, it feels like you should just give up, because it's just easier to give up at some points, especially when there's doctors telling you. I remember later on in my journey, literally maybe like a year ago, one of the final doctors that I saw were like, well, who told you that you'd even get them back anyway? And I thought, is he being serious? Like, it was like, well, 50% of people don't even get it back. I was like, so why has no one ever told me this before then? I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and not once have I read any article or any doctor has told me this before, any experience that I've read. Okay, maybe some people don't get it back, but 50% of people to not get it back. And for him to have the attitude of like, well, what actually makes you think you'll get it back anyway? It's actually really unlikely. I walked away from that shook. I was so angry and I was so upset, and I think I had a right to be, because I've been just working so hard. Not working so hard, but it's been a problem for so long, and no one had ever told me that, and I've had such different experiences with doctors, and at the start again they really just were pushing contraception. I remember, so once I did go to the gynecologist, and so this was after I did my hormones and they were tested, the first thing I had with her, I remember this as well, the first appointment that I had with her, she was like, okay, your hormones are low, like estrogen and all this were low. And I said, okay, that's a good thing in terms of, okay, we know that something is wrong, because so far all the tests, they did scan on my ovaries and all this, and they said that there was nothing. So this was like the first sign where I was like, okay, now we can see what the problem is. How do we go about that? And the first thing she said was like contraception. And I'm not very educated on the pill and all this, but I just knew that I didn't want to go on it. Only because I knew that I had a period, a functioning period before, and it's my actions and behaviours that affected that. So in my head, there's no reason why I couldn't get back to my natural period without utilising a pill that also does other things that I don't want, you know? And again, I'm not saying that no one should use the pill. I'm just saying that in my head, using the pill would just be a cover-up of what's going on, and it wouldn't be fixing the problem. It would just, if I was to go on the pill and my period was to come back, I wouldn't have faith that that was my period. It would be things that the drugs were stimulating, and I wasn't okay with that, because I knew that I had a functioning period beforehand without the pill and all this. So I strongly recommend that you do, if you're sitting in a position where you don't have a period and like me, you lost it, maybe not through an eating disorder. There are other ways to go through hypothalamic amenorrhea. So don't just think, oh, well, I don't have an eating disorder, but I've lost my period. It can't be that. It could still very well be that. But yeah, do your research. Like, don't just not take the pill because someone said that you shouldn't take the pill. It's all very individual. You need to talk to your GP. You need to do your research on what you want to do. But this is just my experience. And then after I was like, to be honest, I don't really want to go on the contraception. Can you give me like, she said she'll give me 6 months, and then we'll try again, and if nothing's really happened, then she'll put me on the pill. Or go through some sort of hormone therapy where they'd inject hormones in me. And I wasn't actually completely against that one for some reason, but again, I was like, well, just give me some time, because I was reading elsewhere that there was some habits and behaviours that I could do to try and get it back, basically. So that's what was in the background of my head while I was at these doctor's appointments, and not once did these doctors ever say that there were things that I could be doing to help. Which is a bit concerning, because I feel like they should know, and they should be prescribing these sorts of behaviours that would help, rather than just going straight to the medication. But I guess that's a different story. 6 months later came, actually, and I had another doctor's appointment with the same gynecologist that saw me and said to give me contraception and it's not IVF, I don't know why I just said that, the hormone therapy. Same doctor, the same woman, and it was like all the things that she said to me in that first appointment, not once did she bring up the hormone therapy, not once did she say, when we looked at the bloods again and my hormone levels, she said, your hormone levels are fine. And I just thought, what is going on? Like, are people trying to actually make me stupid? I felt so weird, because I was like, well, did you not tell me the first time that my hormone levels were low, that I probably need to be going through 6 months of hormone therapy, like, and now you're telling me my hormone levels are fine and that I could still go on the pill if I wanted to. I literally just had no words, and this is what I'm saying, were like just disheartening doctor's appointments where I was just like, what are you actually saying to me? Because anyway, I was just very upset. So after being upset from that, I then started to look at private clinics and where I could go, and luckily I knew this woman before I knew that she specifically worked with people with hypothalamic amenorrhea. So then when I also found that out, I was just like, okay, well, I kind of already trust this woman anyway. I had seen Natasha on YouTube as well, who had gone to her, and for some reason I just already knew her, and her name is Renee? Oh no, how do I pronounce her name? Renee? I'll put her name up on the screen, and I'll put the link to her website down below as well, so if you're also struggling, you can definitely check her out. So she is a dietitian and practitioner, and she works alongside a team, an endocrinologist, which is someone that looks at your hormones. And basically I went to them, I gave them my story, and there was like, you're exactly the kind of people that we do work with, come see us. So I travelled all the way to Bath for a nice little day trip, and I think this is still very much early. This is maybe like, what now, two and a half years of missing periods. So in terms of 2017 to 2022, I have gradually just gotten better in terms of my mental health, my relationship to food, my weight, and my thoughts and stuff. So that's kind of just before the middle. So I'm not exactly recovered at this stage. So that is something to bear in mind as well. If you are struggling with an eating disorder, which again, not all cases of hypothalamic amenorrhea will be, reading things like this book and going to a private clinic where they tell you what you should be doing, it can be very difficult to process as someone who is struggling, because the recommendations are things like, make sure to eat very regularly, every 2 to 3 hours. You should be eating enough, obviously, and maybe even over for a period of time, especially if you have been consistently under eating. It's not all about gaining weight, but if you are at a very low body fat percentage, then yes, do put on weight, because fat is necessary for your hormones, and eating fat and also just having fat on your body, women more so than men need kind of more fat on their body just for their health in general. Again, this is very specific to the individual. Not everyone needs as much fat on their bodies to be healthy and to have a period, but again, something that's not spoken about enough, and something that's just not voiced, is that everybody is different. So the level of fat that I need on my body to be healthy and happy and to live a fulfilling life might be a lot more than the standard and what we're shown, and that is hard enough to deal with and process and to live with, especially in our world that's so aesthetic driven, and like a slim body, and the only acceptable places to have fat on your body is your bum or your boobs. So it's like, and if you're not that, then you're the athletic one, who's got the abs and the muscle, and I don't know, we know that there are appearance ideals, and usually those appearance ideals are to be thin. And I'm not saying that being overweight is healthy. I'm saying that there is a spectrum of where people sit and where they are healthy. And when I was in a leaner body and a smaller body, I wasn't healthy. And maybe it's the behaviours, obviously, the behaviours that I was doing, consistently under eating and over exercising, and all the mindset that I had, that obviously was contributing to me not being healthy. So I can't really say, okay, well, if I lost it in a healthy way, then, and in a smaller body, it'd be fine. I don't have the answer to that. And it could be, but at the same time, it is true that every individual has a happy spot and a place that they are happiest and healthiest, and that will look different for everyone, and that could be in a larger body. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, recommendations, as I said, it could be to gain weight. Exercise less. Yeah, less intense exercise, and if you're an athlete or someone that just works out a lot, that again could be hard to hear. You could be exercising a lot just because you generally enjoy it. Less intense exercise for sure, and not training fasted. So if you're working out in the morning with nothing in your stomach, then you'd be advised to eat beforehand, and then also post-recovery, post-workout fuel, pre and post-workout, very important. So yeah, they were the kind of the main tips. And as I said, if you are struggling with an eating disorder or your relationship to food and exercise and body image, then it can be quite difficult to hear, because it's those behaviours that feel like that get you going, in terms of you're latching on to that over exercising. It's your coping mechanism. It's, if you don't do that, then I feel like shit, basically. So having that kind of taken away from you is like, oh my, you freak out. I freaked out because I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna gain all this weight. I'd rather not gain weight. I don't want my period, kind of thing. Even though I knew that was all irrational, it was just me holding on to this fear of weight gain and this belief that I'm not attractive if I'm fat, and all these things wrapped up in my head, but I couldn't really vocalise that either. So it was hard to hear, but Renee was absolutely amazing. And doing the actual behaviours and making sure that I was eating enough consistently, it took a lot of time before I was actually doing those behaviours. So if you can get social support from anyone, please do that. So I don't think I really changed much at the beginning. And then it was just about being patient. Nothing came for ages. And I do have to admit, I think I probably wasn't recovered properly from my eating disorder until like a year, 2 years ago. So maybe my eating habits probably changed for the better around 2 years ago rather than 3 years ago. So yeah, I guess maybe that's why it's taken a long time. And then when it did start to get better, I wasn't in contact with the private clinic anymore. I was just living my life basically. And then COVID happened, still nothing though. I've even gained weight since 2 years ago, since a year ago. I've just been continuously gaining weight. And again, it's not just about your weight, it's about the behaviours and stuff too. And I remember, I think the first sign of anything happening, my boobs really started to hurt for like a month. This was in October. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I knew it was a good sign, but I was also like, I'm freaking out a little bit. Like, I went downstairs to my uni friends and was like, my boobs hurt. And I was like, maybe your period's starting. And I was just like, well, no, I haven't had my period for 5 years. But obviously I was also like, some part of me believed that, okay, this could be my period. But I also didn't want to believe it just in case I'd be disappointed. But I was like, oh my god, my boobs hurt. Like, what's going on? And then funnily enough, like 2 weeks later, in November, I got my first TMI, but I'm here now. Like my first evidence of some sort of blood on my knickers and stuff. I was like, I was shocked, but I was also just like, I just didn't know what to do. I was like, wow, this is happening. And it's been such a long journey. As I said, like, it wasn't comfortable to change the behaviours, but over time, as I improved my relationship to food and body image and all this, actually just kind of happened. And my period came when I was least expecting it, when I stopped thinking about it after the doctor's appointment where they said 50% of people don't even get it back. I was like, you know what, fuck you. But yeah, and it was just quite, it wasn't like a proper period, it was just like a drop. And it was quite brown as well, so it wasn't proper, and it didn't last very long. But I knew that, okay, we're on the right tracks. And it just made me laugh because especially that month, it was like the second month of uni, third month of uni of my final year after COVID has happened. So we've been going out so much. Like, so I've had so many like sleepless nights, or nights where I've not really had a lot of sleep, drinking more alcohol than I think I've ever had. But I guess like I was just having a good time, and I was more relaxed, probably happier. So even though I was engaging in behaviours that probably aren't that healthy, overall I was healthier. And I guess, yeah, and my period just came back again. Obviously I've not always been like that. If I've been like that from the start, then maybe my period wouldn't come back. I probably set the foundation in terms of my eating and my training and sleeping and not fasted training and all this kind of thing that I changed. So yeah, it was a nice surprise. But then I didn't get it for another 3 months. I think I got it again in February and then again in May. But now since May, I've had it May, June, July, which is again really good. It's not the same as it used to be. I used to have it a lot more, and it would last longer. but it's fine, I'm on the right tracks, and I have a period, which is absolutely fantastic, so it's great. Something that I did notice though, even though I didn't have my period, every month, because I worked with a nutrition coach for a while, which wasn't that helpful. I don't know what that was, but anyway, I did it. And she'd get me to take photos of my body every week. And I noticed that there were some weeks, every single month, that I was bloating. And it's like I had a cycle, but no cycle was happening. And I'm only noticing this on reflection because obviously at the time I didn't have a period, so I was like, well, it's not my period. And this was a time where I was quite conscious about my body still, and like body image thoughts were still very much quite high. In terms of negativity. So I was just like, every single month when I was bloating, I was like, what is my stomach like? Why is my stomach like that? And I just thought, oh, I looked bad, you know? But now I'm realising, because now I've noticed my menstrual cycle in terms of the symptoms I get cramps, my back hurts, my boobs hurt, like I can tell when it's about to happen. And I do also bloat, so in my head I'm like, well, maybe something was just always there. The bloating must have been a part of the menstrual cycle, but it just never clicked. And I'm bringing that up because a lot of women do bloat, a lot of girls, women do bloat on their period, and their weight is affected by their menstrual cycle, and it can take such a toll on our mental health and our mood when we see ourselves like that. But it's just so normal, it's just part of the process. Again, boys don't really have to go through this, but for girls, like, it's just so normal. It's just something that you have to accept. Like, don't give yourself hate every single time that, especially if you notice it and it is something that affects you. Even if bloating isn't related to your menstrual cycle, like, just don't stress, stop giving yourself hate. It's natural. You just have to learn to live with it and accept it. But yeah, so that's basically my story. Have patience, have so much patience. 5 years, it's quite a long time. A lot of setbacks, as I said, professionals telling you that it's not going to come back, maybe doing things that you don't really want to be doing. It's quite hard. But yeah, please do get help and stick with it. Be patient, seek out social support if you need to, do your own research, go with a decision that makes you feel comfortable and that you're happy with. And yeah, that's everything. I've been talking for ages. But I hope that is useful to some of you in any way. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you're listening on podcast, please leave a rating or leave a review. Again, even on YouTube, please leave a comment as well if you had any questions relating to this, but also to nutrition, to mental health, to body image, to dieting, to everything within that realm. And I'd be happy to answer. But yeah, thank you so much for your support, and I hope it was helpful in some way. See you later.